Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ball Watching. Getting deeper into the season here. Justin, it's been a ride, ups and downs so far, and we'll talk a little bit of the macro level as we get into the show today. But man, it's a Tuesday, a little bit earlier this week, time of recording. But there's a lot going on, man, and I'm just going to skip straight to it. Justin, my mind is here, with the pod and making sure that we do a good recap for this last match against Columbus and a good preview for the number one in MLS as a whole, Vancouver Whitecaps, coming to visit town here. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my heart, and that is watching the Blues right now. The boys, dude, if I wasn't doing this, I was prepared to have the video up, eating bandwidth, streaming, but it's 4-0. They've come out swinging. You love to see it. A regulation win gets the Blues in the playoffs, and what better time to be alive than watching some Blues hockey back in the playoffs after an absence?
Absolutely. Well, Jake, come on. Knock on wood. I know 4-0 in the first period.
I'm going to say it.
But please, this is going to be an all-time announcer's curse if they go down somehow. But even if they did lose, shout out to the puck watching boys for giving you the rundown on the 5 different ways that we can make the playoffs. So if you guys don't follow them on puck watching. And they kind of picked this up. Well, you told me we talked about this 2 or 3 weeks before we went on the 12-game winning streak. They picked it up at the bottom and they're finishing at the top. Extremely excited for those guys, and it's an awesome follow, and it's going to be a hell of a ride here in the playoffs.
And I think, Justin, when we had them on here, neither of them, and we'll give them some good crap about this, neither of them predicted them making the playoffs. This is right on the cusp of the 4 nations ending and the win streak really beginning. And I think we all said, too, that City probably had the best chance at making the playoffs in any St. Louis MLS sport, maybe barring the Battlehawks this season. But boy, were we wrong. I hope we're wrong for the Blues, but we're still right on City getting there. And boy, there's so much season left. People that are writing this team off already. I'm going to inject some positivity into the show today, Justin. I don't know about your vibe going into this, but we're gonna make sure that we layer in a little bit of realism as we get to the show.
Yeah, absolutely, Jake. I mean, I'll put a little realism right now. We're still averaging a point per game. I think last year, if you remember, you need a 1.4 to get in the playoffs. Yeah. I mean, if we look at this, we have 8 points through 8 games, obviously. And then if you look at Dallas, they only have 11 points. They're sitting in the 8th spot, and that would be the wild card spot. So, I mean, way too early. We already talked about this last time, Jake. Yeah, we'll talk about the frustrations of the last game. 1, we looked a lot better. But 2, again, mid-April. This season goes all the way through into late September, early October. And then you get into the playoffs of December. What is that? We got another 7 months ahead of us. Yeah, so everybody just cool jets.
For sure. It's a haul. And what better way to bring us into the first topic, Justin? So I think we were both watching. What are you watching? We're both watching the Blues. I'm just going to say it for both of us right now. Eyes there, minds here. But remember the season preview, Justin, we did the blocks, right? We looked at the different types of, sections of our season just to kind of break them out into who we're playing, how many home and away. And block 1 came and went, right? That was 7 games. Block 8 began with Columbus. But block 1, I'd be remiss if I didn't just go back to it and just say that 7 games played. We amassed 8 points, went 2-4-2, win, loss, draw. It's sort of a tale of 2 halves, right? The first 4, you get your 2 wins and your 2 draws right off the bat there, and you're conceding basically nothing. I believe it was nothing for those 4 matches. Mm-hmm. And then you get the back half where things just, I think, went a little bit off the rails in terms of the attack went quiet. And maybe not even necessarily that. Definitely the attack went a little bit quiet, but the finishing went very, very quiet. And, we just couldn't get it back on track for those 4 matches. But it's a new streak. It's a new section. It's a new block for us, block number 2. And even though Columbus, like you said, we're spoiling a little bit of our own narrative here, but I talked about performance and wanting to see something that I could get behind and believe in. And I walk away from that game believing definitely a little bit more than I did coming into it.
Yeah, Jake, actually, I should have pulled this tweet up. You had a good tweet before the game. It was what would you rather do? Would you rather have a loss where you see some good stuff or a kind of an ugly win? I'm not going to lie, Jake, I voted ugly win because I'll just take the points at this point. But this was a loss where we actually saw some good things out of this team. And I really do appreciate it. I know we'll talk about the details of it, but I think we showed a lot of fight early on. Yes, we almost gave up a chance right before we scored our goal. But then we are just pushing and pushing and pushing. And we needed to come out firing on a game like this because Sunday Night Soccer, the atmosphere was electric. Hoffman Brothers being the presenting sponsor of the game. Everybody was ready and just hungry to see something. And the boys gave it to us early.
Yeah, good reference on the vote. Yeah, we got quite a bit of votes there, and the options were good performance but lose, which got a fourth of the vote. a goalless draw, which got 15% of the vote, and then an ugly win, which got 60% of the vote. And I think a win, I don't fault anyone that thinks the ugly win, because 3 points is 3 points. A bird in hand versus a bird, whatever the other phrase is, a bird in hand. Like, you'd rather take 3 points, go home, put that in the bank. That's going to bring you closer to your goal of getting the playoffs this season. But the good performance but lose was kind of where my head was at, because I want to get behind and see Olaf learning from things. I want to see the players learning from things. I want to see, gradual incremental progression. And I really do, that Columbus was a step in the right direction. But before, Justin, we get into the rest of the show, a couple quick things to hit out on. We were obviously in Energizer Park for the match. It was a vibe. So much fun to be back there. And, on a big marquee matchup for Sunday Night Soccer, saw some awesome listeners. Shout out to Nick, Tess, and Dennis, who all went out of their way to say hi and tell us they loved the show. So shout out to you three. It was a pleasure meeting and seeing you all in the stands. Hopefully you enjoyed the match. And another thing, Justin, this is kind of out of nowhere, but it's gone on a little bit viral, I'd say, in like the St. Louis kind of soccer community, is the boys. The U16 City Academy taking down Bayern Munich's U16 Academy team in the Generation Adidas Cup on penalties. They scored in the 6th minute, and boy, the buildup on that goal they scored was fantastic. I'll get on my soapbox here, Justin. I'll just say that I like seeing this kind of thing, because when you see it being done right, or, beautiful in the academy, you're hoping those players, age up and get better together. They gel, they get chemistry, they get this philosophy all down pat. And that maybe one of those guys, who knows, in a year or two, maybe a couple more than that, is making impact on the first team. That's the dream, right? We haven't really seen it yet, but that's my dream, is to see someone that comes up all the way through our academy and gets onto the first team field and makes a huge impact.
And honestly, Jake, it was a great goal, but the best part about that goal was the connection. One, it was in the first minute, but if you saw, it was a throw in into the middle, which was kind of a dicey ball into a guy holding center mid, calm, cool, collected, plays back to center back, up, back through, knock somebody through, block shot, nice finish. One of the favorite parts about that is you watch the guy, they're so amped and trying to celebrate. He tries to go for the knee slide, just digs it right in and flips over. And they were so happy. It was awesome. But then you saw the goalkeeper making the save in the PKs to push us through. He gets a knee slide in at the end. So these boys are just absolutely amped. And absolutely, they should be. They just took down Bayern.
Yeah, right. They should. And Bayern, by the way, that academy is massive. They churn out tons of talent. And we're even churning out talent as is already. Think about a guy like Joyner, who Mackay Joyner gets a call up from City 2 to the first team here. He gets 6 of those this season as a homegrown on City 2. And he even got in the game, too. Got in the match, got some minutes at left wing back. I like the energy he brought, right? As a young guy, you just got to get out there and make a difference. Like, make me think twice next time I see you on the bench. But you know what? This guy could bring something. And just from our purview, Justin, we had a great view, right? Being in our section and where he was working and honing his craft. You could just see the energy he brought. And I love that. It's a bare minimum you could be as a young guy. So I was impressed, and good to see Mackay Joyner get some reps out there. We also saw McSorley get called up as well. Did not play. But last comment, Justin, on personnel before we get into injuries in the post game is, you're seeing this Fredrik Jensen link pop up kind of all over social media right now. I think yesterday it really kind of took off with the fan base and all the content creators out there. For anyone that's missed it, 20 to 27-year-old Finnish international. Looks like he can kind of play anywhere in the midfield, likely probably central midfielder, CDM. I think they have on his position, though, a central attacking midfielder, though he has no scoring or assisting really in his game over the last couple seasons. My biggest caveat, Justin, I thought you'd like this. He was actually made in the same factory as Nilsson. He is so injury prone. He's missed so many matches and minutes over the last couple seasons. The last time he logged over 1,000 minutes in a season was in 2017 and 2018. Sorry, there's been one time since then. So that's not showing me a lot. We need availability. To me, it's one of the greatest abilities, is to be around. And if you can't be around, how are we going to wait to call on you and put you into games? So I'm not sold on this, Justin. Both the profile and the person specifically, I'm kind of looking more, if we're going to go for someone, let's get another Wallum. Let's get another Tolan, someone at wingback that can make a difference. Or in midfield, get someone that can pull strings and orchestrate, like a Leuven or like a Hartel when he drops back deeper.
Yeah, that's fair. I think there's still more to come on this. We'll see what the deal is. I'm kind of hoping it's like this team's kind of like, this guy's kind of, it's one man's trash and no man's treasure. It's kind of the hope here, that we buy low, sell high with this guy. I'm assuming that's what Luch is thinking here. I don't think this is gonna be a guy where we're spending $1 million, even though his market value is pretty high. I just think it's one of those that hopefully Lutz has the in. He's talking to them. They're kind of done with him. We'll pick him up, maybe do a little shake hands and talk about it later. But still more to come on that. But more to focus on our team, more specifically the injuries, Jake. So one thing I do want to call out here, and I'm thinking about this losing streak, I think Ben Lunt has done very well in goalkeeper. I think he's made the great saves. His parries have been well to reduce the post-shot XG as well. His feet, yeah, we already talked about in the first game. He's been better about it, though, now knowing that he's not good with his feet. So let's not try to play like him. He is Berkey. Berkey was expected to miss a month, and now we're looking at the initial timetable will be elapsed this weekend as well. So still more to come on that when the injury report comes out this week. He put up an Instagram story yesterday.
I saw it.
Yeah, and I will say I was laughing at it. And then also the city refs also sent it to me. They're like, doesn't this guy have like a fractured thumb? And I said, because he picks up his girlfriend, I said, love is stronger than a fractured thumb.
Yeah.
But I do think, I think he's about back. I think, and I'm kind of hoping that that's kind of like he's starting to enjoy it. He's starting to feel it. And maybe to that point, I'm not blaming this losing streak on Lund, but that's our captain. This, if you just think about from an orchestration perspective of being in the back, telling guys where to go, the communication, the pure just leadership out of him. When you talk about Leuven, can be more stoic. Berkey is not more stoic. Berkey is letting you hear it, letting you know it, directing traffic. So that is something that I feel like we're just missing that's not on the stat sheet.
Agreed. So it sounds like he's close. We'll wait to hear that confirmed in a press conference coming up here in a couple of days. But Totland also elapsing on his initial timetable they gave us about a month too with his pulled hammy. So I'm hoping both those guys are right there on the cusp. I'm not expecting them this weekend. Again, I don't want to push either of those two. I'd rather have them for longer than throw them in before they're ready because especially Totland right now, I think because Lund, like you said, is doing a good job as best he can, I think, between the sticks. But Totland, we have missed sorely. Jay Reed is, I think, the closest behind them in terms of getting back from his broken foot. They told us back when he did that'd be late April, they'd reassess. So we're getting towards late April. I'm optimistic about that. The longer term ones that I'm seeing right now are Alm. You never really know with Alm. Apparently he's nearing his return from his hip injury. But the longer term ones we're dealing with are Horn, dealing with a thigh, quad injury early May, Nilsson late May with his knee, and Durkin early June with MCL. So all pretty painful absences to deal with. And it just brings back to mind, we are definitely dealing with some big name, big leaving holes in the squad absences. And guys, I'd say for the most part are acquitting themselves well, but you then also begin to see where we could really use some influx of quality in certain positions. But I do have to applaud ingenuity, Justin, and I will give Olaf his credit in what we rolled out with in this starting 11 for the match, because I look at it and I'll just go to the back five to start. You see Baumgartel get a start, which thank the Lord. We'll talk about Timo as we get into the show, but Timo, I loved it. We were clamoring for it the last couple of weeks. He finally got to go. We saw Kessler and Yarrow join him from center to right. And then Hebert, I think we all kind of expected him to be at right wing back, but he started at left wing back while Wallum was the inverse. And we hadn't seen that before. But I love it because what it does for me is Wallum going to right wing back when you're going to play Teuschaert ahead of him. Teuschaert's not going to run the wings. He's not going to run the channels. He's going to look to get in behind, occupy space, maybe cut a little more centrally. Wallum's going to run that entire right flank. Let him roam. I love that because putting him the right lets him do that because Teuschaert will not. Versus Celio being paired left of Teuschaert, Celio's going to do that, but that Kyle Hebert's not. So Kyle Hebert being a left wing back with Celio in front of him, make sure that you do have width on your left flank and you have verticality there as well. So again, I think it took some thinking. I don't think we ever predicted that. I don't think anyone really I heard predicted that, but I like where Olaf was going with this. It's a shame that we had to take Yarrow out with the head injury. I totally respect the decision. I think we kind of botched how we handled it in the very beginning, but I wish we weren't disrupted because I liked the personnel and where they were. I think it gave us a good chance to be balanced.
Yeah, I mean, one, it was a little bit of a different lineup when you think about the top three as well, making a triangle there. But Jake, to your point, I think that's a huge move by him. He probably saw everything on social media and Twitter, and that guy, he's not on Twitter, but he's seen it in the play that last game we were working everything down the left hand side, and that's because you had Wallum, and then you had a Cecilio, and you're working it all down that side. Now, if you just take Wallum and put him on the right and put him opposite of Celio, you're gonna kind of counteract that. And so I really do appreciate that he is kind of changing things up because, God, we kind of need it.
Well, absolutely. We needed something. And the only other thing I want to draw attention to is Hartel dropping deeper into midfield, almost playing his best role as Leuven in the build-up there. And, you don't want him to be that deep because you do burden him with some difficulties in a space defensively where he probably won't, succeed as much. But it wasn't awful from a defensive perspective. And he was able to find the ball more. And I think he kind of has to. I don't know who else could be there, Justin. It clearly Olaf doesn't rate Ostrak, I think maybe like we do, and giving him a chance there. And maybe between him and Morales, you worry about getting overrun there. So you bite a little bit of risk off by putting Hartel centrally there, but you give him a lot more time in the ball and a connector in the middle of the field. So I respect the decision. And again, I just like that Olaf is doing things differently and tinkering, based on giving us a better chance of progressing the ball.
Yeah, and I would say that he probably saw what we were talking about as well, where Hartel was dropping so deep in some of these early games, trying to find the game. And so instead of having him be in a position that's up top where he can't find it, and he's trying to drop back almost to where the center backs would be, might as well just start him there. And that's probably his thought there. However, Jake, I will say 7th minute, literally right after it went into the 6th, it was 6 minutes flat. They were just passing through us, working their way down. And then they ultimately get to the top of our box. And if you see, we have 4 guys just absolutely ball watching. The one dude on the ball and one guy out wide. I would say one of them was Hartel, and I would say he's a little bit out of position there. But honestly, the one that was out of position out of all of them, which is kind of surprising to me, was Mr. Kessler. I think he drifted so far wide. I'm almost positive, Jake, that he might have had both of his cleats on the outside of the 18 there. And you just can't have that from our central center back of the 3 when they are at the top of our 18. So that allowed them to have a little drop back. And then Rossi just had a point blank rip on Lunt and a great save by Ben Lunt, which was then what started our attack on the other end.
Yeah, it's like defense turns into offense, and the Baumgartel puts a big boot on it. And what better person to have up top alone to help hold the ball up or generate a counter than Klaus, who gets his head on that ball, flicks it perfectly into space for Celio, who knows what's happening. He's like, I've seen this before in training. Klaus is going to beat this guy aerially 10 out of 10 times, and I'm going to be benefiting from it. Streaks downfield, even attracts some more defenders. At some point, I think he had about 3 guys, not on him, but one really on him, one for support, and one kind of lingering a little bit close by. And you know what? He puts his head down, drives to the byline, beats his man, shirks him off, and sends a nice cut back towards Klaus, who just rings the crossbar on the one-time shot. I mean, Schulte didn't even probably see it off the boot. And then is there for the putback, repositions himself, steps back. Very tough header, by the way, against momentum. And he's able to nod this into the far post. Whether that should have flown in, between Schulte or Arfson, who I think was back on that back post. I think they got a little bit confused as to who was going there to get that ball off the line. I don't care. That is, Justin, the definition of a slump buster goal. And I could not have been happier for him. The stands erupted.
Jake, I know I said I wasn't going to share screens, but I'm going to share screens solely because the one thing that you didn't mention in this that I loved was that Celio played a little pulled something out of a street yard ball. When he's taking this ball down the sideline, watch when he pauses. This is, when he's feeling himself when he does this. He's telling somebody's he points to the left right here. Oh, aren't you going right there? No one's behind there. He's just trying to mess with the defender and saying, whoop, see you later. And he right here, Jake, you're right. 3 guys were coming to surround him. Nice finish there, attempted finish. Yeah, Schulte should have got to that. But I think the one, that Celio's starting to get his mojo back when he's starting to play like that.
For sure. And you saw the chemistry too, I think, with him and Celio after Klaus and Celio were celebrating there. Klaus really gave him a strong dap. We've got something here, man. Let's keep this going. And I again, a great way to start a game, especially on the counter after they just had a great quality chance on our line, saved by Lunt. A theme I want to call out, Justin, that I saw early in the first half, and it led to a goal in the end, was I believe the back post run looked like something that they were looking for on our defensive line and seeing if they could breach. I saw one good example in the 11th minute when their left wing back, Max Arston, slipped in behind Wallum on his back shoulder. Columbus is a quality team, right? They're going to play a good service in, and some of those early crosses, I think, were kind of harming us, and we weren't able to successfully track runners sometimes. And so I think Wallum got let off on that because that one somehow missed in that entirely. But we didn't get let off in the 45+2 when Colorado got their equalizer, courtesy of a, by the way, hell of a finish from Steven Moreira, who had crept his way all the way up from center back. But a bummer because one, it's a back post cross. We drew a lot of our defenders over to one side of the field, and this big cross comes in. Celio is really the only man in the vicinity of Steven Moreira, and people can talk about whether or not he should be there from a marking perspective, but just from an awareness perspective, when things have gone that way, you've got to be looking over your shoulders, taking a pulse on what's going on around you, and you cannot let a chance like that fly for free. Even if putting a shoulder on someone or just kind of putting them off physically, you don't need to make the tackle, but just put them off. Otherwise, again, hell of a finish. Nothing Luke could have done about it, and we're looking at 1-1 going into halftime.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, Jacob, we're seeing a little bit of a theme there as well when we think about the midfielders that are not hurt, and they are ball watching and they're not tracking their guys. And I don't know if it's from a mix of rotation, like we said, where typically you're always going to have a Leuven or a Durkin who's really, that's the first thing they're doing is like, think of them in basketball. When a 3-pointer goes up, Leuven and Durkin are looking around like, who am I boxing out? The other guys are not. Celio is almost looking like, all right, I need to be able to make a quick turn and go right when Luke gets this so we can counter this. And it's just a different mindset. And I would say it's also probably a little bit of chemistry there. And that's one, chemistry with Luke and the guys in front, being able to direct them and make sure they're in the right positions before we get into this spot. And then two, if you're talking about Kessler with a rotation of guys that are in front of him, you had Celio who is backtracking there. Hartel's in a position that's not usually there. Morales is new with the team. So I think it's a little bit of communication issues, but again, I'll probably put a little bit of that, not only on the ball watching side, yes, need to be better at defending, but a little bit on the injury side and having a non-consistent formation.
Agreed. Going into, I think, the feature that I saw the most from this team was we were a consistent thorn in their side when the ball got turned over, or even when it didn't get turned over, we connected 1, 2, 3 passes and went. I called this section direct STL. So the boys were just, the moment the ball got turned over, a couple examples, Morales, for example, intercepting. He had 2 of these, by the way, made a great interception, blocked a passing lane in the midfield, made a great quick incisive pass to a guy like Klaus, who flicked it on for Hartel. Teuschert's making the run in behind now. And Hartel, God bless him, that ball is just perfectly paced, perfectly weighted, right onto his receiving foot, not behind him, not in front of him, on him, so that he can take that first touch and go right in front of him. I think Teuscher kind of got over his skis a little bit, took maybe one too many touches and ended up skying that ball over. Has to do better there. But how we got that and manufacture that still remains. I saw Yarrow step in and win a ball. Played a first-time pass to Wallum, who plays Klaus quick, and Klaus just a little heat check. This is after he scored his goal. Rips a little shot on the near post, a little shot on target. Otherwise, again, it's more direct play, whether that's off of a turnover. Obviously, Betcher's chance comes to mind as well, where I don't know what Columbus was doing in their box like that. He's got to do better with that. But we carried a consistent offensive threat. I have 13, 17, 33, 71, 72, 85, 88. All of those are chances that could have been made or could have hit the back of the net for us. And I didn't even include the goal in that. So the fact that we can carry a threat like that against a well-drilled, well-disciplined Columbus side who is very stingy in front of net and with a good goalkeeper in Schulte, that's what gives me hope, is we were able to replicate and do it again and do it maybe a little bit differently and to do it on possession. So that's why I feel good, is like defensively, we know we've gotten better. Offensively, there was something to believe in and something that if we did go down, which we did, I wasn't like the game's over, right? We're not going to score a goal. I felt like we could generate something.
Yeah, it seems like a different mindset out of these guys where we were talking about in the green room. It's like first season, we were just press, energy drink soccer, turn them over and go at them. And then second season was a little bit of a change in that, obviously with a change in players as well as managers. And then now we bring in Olaf, and it's been a lot more sit back, take it in, and just make sure that we're a brick wall. And we haven't really seen us be able to just pounce like we have right now. And I really think that it's starting to click. And honestly, Jake, a little bit of Celio action. I think when you have Wallum and you have a Celio and you get Hartel who can just ping a ball in long, and you have someone that Klaus, they can play it up top, can flick or draw defenders and flick in a speedy Celio. I think it's a little bit of that. The one thing I will say out of this whole thing is I appreciate what you said. We did create a lot of chances. However, when you listed them, it kind of popped back in my mind. We scored in the 7th. Then we had chances 13, 17, 33. Then we have a gap. That gap is where we are losing these games, Jake, because our next gap on chances is 71st, 72nd, 85th, 88th. And that middle period is where this team is falling off. And then we're realizing it like, oh shit moment in the 70th minute. And that's when subs come on.
Yeah.
And, hey, we're losing this game. And we need to figure out a way to score. And we need to be able to flick this back on and not lose that, 40-minute gap within the game.
Yeah, to put more color to that, it's a good call out, is closing out your chances and just halves and gains, just being able to suffocate an opponent when you need to, or just kind of close it, just keep it tight. The first half for us, it ended with a bang on Columbus's side. They generated almost 1 XG in the final 5 added minutes of the first half, and we should have we obviously paid for it with 1 goal. Should have paid for it with another. AZ gifted us one. I mean, just totally missed the frame on a great opportunity. But our buddy Mike from Chat City Tactics had a great kind of quantification of some of those chances, and now they're throwing chances for XG into buckets of great, good, and just average. And as a team this year, we've generated 8 great chances. You might ask what that means. That's just anything with a 0.33 and above expected goal. So a really good high quality chance. And then good is 0.15 to 0.32, and then average below that. We are 1 for 8 this year on those great chances. The average around the league is 53% conversion rate. I'm not a mathematician, but I crunched the numbers. 1 for 8 is 12.5%. So everyone knows the chances have been harder to come by this year. This game was a different example, so that's great. But the conversion is really what's hurt us this year. It's just even when they do come, we're left wanting, and we're not able to take advantage of those. And I think this game was another example of that, where the chances went up, but the conversion wasn't there. When you can't convert against a Columbus team that is going to convert against you like they did, you're not going to really stand a chance of coming away with 3 points.
Yeah, Jake, I would say I'm just going to give you a little visual real quick on this game as well. And this is where we're starting to see this, unfortunately, as more of a theme for us. And yeah, there's a ton of yellow on this. Like, obviously, I think we sat in a lot more. However, this is the part where we talk about it. Here's your 33rd minute chance. Then we just go pretty much dormant. We have a little bit of a chance here in the 50th, but good God, that's where we're missing this. They score their goal in the 55th. And then you see on this back end, it's like, wow, this team's trying. It's a mix of 2 things. 1, we're losing and we got to try to win. And then 2, they're also just trying to pack it in. We talked about this in the Austin game when we came back out of the rain delay. It's like, well, where did this team come from? No, they're letting you kind of take it in because they're letting you keep the ball in the half and kind of own possession and try to create chances because they're just trying to put 10 guys on the goal line and making sure that you're not scoring.
Agreed. Yeah, for anyone that's not watching, this is like a momentum chart of where the chances all kind of swing in. Ours was kind of against the run of play, and you can see this chart. It's red and yellow, and the red humps are a lot less and a lot bigger than the yellow humps because Columbus was, again, they were dangerous the entire match. They didn't pepper us with shots, but the field tilt, the amount of possession in our final third and in our defensive third, their final third, they were there for basically the entire game. And when they made a mistake, we pounced. And we did generate some good chances off that. So I'll give the team credit there. Justin, it's Timo time. I want to talk about Timo Baumgartel. Looking at the signing, we all were like, okay, it's a depth guy from Germany who was playing in the Bundesliga and, had a relatively pretty good career playing for PSV as well. And obviously in Bundesliga. What are you getting now? Because, right, he's almost 35. You don't know what he has left. And I know he's come out of, I think he even had cancer as well. And so he beat that. And so his career of the last couple of years has been a little bit dicey. So you don't know what you're getting, but you do know what they say. And they've said that he's a ball playing center back that can play a little more flexible across the back line. And that's exactly what we need. And that's what he brought to the team on Sunday. I loved what I saw from Timo. I want to see more Timo. He looked outstanding. And there were some moments of some rust. Absolutely. There's some giveaways, some errant passes here and there. But the physicality, the pressure that he brought onto opponents, even stepping into midfield, even into the press or the attack sometimes for us, I loved it. And I thought his passing, just the ability to have a center back, not just Kessler, but a guy also next to Kessler in the same back line that can play line splitting, progressive passes. We haven't had that this season. So it's been great to see him just get introduced. It's a breath of fresh air. Kudos again to Olaf for making that. Saw some great tackles from him in the match. He's doing what a defender should do, and he's kind of wearing a little bit of a midfielder hat as well and progressing the ball. So I was floored, honestly, with that first debut. Floored enough to really want to see more. Not that I think he is our best defender all of a sudden, but he has to start, right? I mean, we're losing depth already with Yaro and Nilsson out and Horn, right? So it's not so much of I think that he's now better than all those guys, but I do think that especially in this time, you've got to give him a really strong look, 90s all the way through. I think he made us a much better rounded team.
Yeah, I mean, you already mentioned that he was defender, a little bit of a midfield. I mean, Jake, don't forget that he had the most XG in the game that he came in a couple games when he was. I'm kidding it when we brought him in as forward as well. But no, I do agree. I think that's one where we're like, wow, we have so many center backs and we're kind of dropping like flies right now. And I was happy to see him just get in there and be a quick plug and play. The one thing I was not happy about in this, Jake, is how easily that we've seen this, not only in this past game, but throughout the season on, if you want to even call it a press, but we're getting lines broken just by a single pass. And I think you have a great point in here. For some reason, it seems like Schulte was almost a trigger. Like when he gets the ball, go press him. When, if anybody knows, Schulte came up in the Gallagher system with TK, and TK thinks that footwork is probably just as important as your hands. And this is not the guy that you should be trying to press.
No.
When this guy has the ball at his feet, he is just as good as if it's in his hand as he's throwing it out of there. So that was a weird one for me. And there's a couple different like specific points within the game where you're seeing that, not just from Schulte, but it seems like we're just getting the amount of, I would love to be able to put the stat together. Maybe I can in FOTMOB, but the amount of times that teams are having a pass that breaks our lines, it feels like it's happening way too consistently. And a lot of times it's into the final third, into the corner, where we're then leaving those cutbacks that are open in the midfield for a lack of communication.
No, I agree. And I think part of that is a double-edged sword. I think part of it is we're getting a little more risk heavy in terms of personnel choices. We're putting more attackers into play instead of 18 different center backs into our starting 11. So part of it is, I think, is a product of that. But part of it, I agree with you, Justin, is like the press to me sometimes triggers feel a little bit like, I don't know if I would treat that trigger the same. And I think we talked about it last game. I think this has become more of a theme recently, because I think we are kind of going for games now more, is that it seems to me like we're just a little bit disjointed on the press. Like it's not as press heavy as obviously we used to be. But when we do pick our moments, it's like sometimes it's the whole group and we all hunt in a pack. Sometimes it's supposed to be the pack, but it's like two of the guys in the pack, and then they blow the press and they're mad at the third guy for not joining. You can see the frustration get vented out sometimes in the field. Like Klaus obviously working his tail off, leading that line and trying to get the press going. And when the person next to him behind isn't on the same wavelength, it breaks down and he's wasting all that sprinting and those intense runs for nothing. So I still think that we have quite a ways to go in terms of when we do press, because again, it's not the identity of our team anymore like it was, but it needs to be a feature. And when you're going to use it, you got to use it correctly and smartly. And I do think there's still quite a way or quite a lot of improvement to me as we progress.
No, I would agree with that, but I think it's a little bit of a change in mindset, like we talked about. And I'm not looking for us to just send everybody forward and press like we used to, because we're not that team and we're not that style of team anymore. When we added in the guys from last year, so I would say when Steinman's in, it seems like that's a little bit more of a go for us when he's up there with Klaus, because he's an absolute motor of an engine. But it's just not something that we're going to see very much. But Jake, as we talked about it, I'll let you kind of bring us into this with how did you feel about Klaus's performance in this game?
Dude, I feel like I hit the lottery. It felt like Christmas morning and Santa Claus came bearing gifts, and he honestly could have brought a little bit more for us. But we've been manifesting it here on the show for like the last 2 months, right? We believe in the guy. We're better on with him on the field. Whoever plays next to him, they're better off because he's on the field. And look no further than this match. He was everywhere. He was out to steal the lunch money from Columbus. He was annoying. He was a nuisance. He was clinical in some moments, could have been more clinical in others. He was just his fingerprints all over that match. 100% hands down my heart and soul, the team, man of the match for us. And this, I don't think there could be any other case for anyone else. But again, this is the beginning for him. He got the goal. The monkey's off his back. People aren't, DP needs to score goals. Of course, he needs to score. You want to see him score more? You got your goal now. Get off of him and get behind him and support the guy, because he should be, for me, first, second, maybe third name on the team sheet the next at least couple of matches until you get me proved wrong.
And Jake, he's absolutely my heart and soul juice player of the match as well. And the reason for that is because, Jake, the man should have had 2 goals. And if anybody can't see this, if you see what we're sharing right now, I mean, it was all over Twitter, all over social media, even our accounts as well. But Taylor Twellman even puts this out. Looks like there's enough evidence for review here as well. So, Jake, I know we reached out to our best friend, Mr. George Gansner, to kind of take us through what did he see when we were looking at this. If you think about it, for anybody that's not aware of this, it was the goal that was called off for Klaus being offsides. And what they said was, Tom Timmerman had a tweet. He said the referee's response to the report on the question on offside, saying all angles were reviewed and there were none that could conclusively prove that St. Louis number 9 was in an onside position. Therefore, there is no review could be recommended.
Yeah, we couldn't do a live segment with George on this one, unfortunately, but obviously George Gansner is our referee and rules analyst. He was last year as well, and we have not had him on that because we haven't gotten really burned yet. This one I feel like kind of stung a little bit. So George recorded a little segment for us. We're going to play for you right now live here and gives us his take on the match and maybe a couple of little tidbits you all might find fascinating.
Hey guys, sorry I can't be live with you tonight. I'm in Dallas at Dallas Cup supporting young referees who are trying to get to the MLS level. So we have a VAR situation on Saturday night in St. Louis with St. Louis City against the Columbus Crew. There's a corner kick taken by St. Louis. It's headed in to Klaus, who is putting it in the back of the goal and may or may not be in an offside position. The flag goes up. They then have to go with an offside if there's no conclusive evidence from the VAR. And I know the VAR check was done. And the ball was in the back of the net, but because the flag went up, they go with the offside. So the video is not conclusive. I'm here with other current and former FIFA referees. We all agree that the video is not conclusive, and the situation would be completely different had the assistant referee kept his flag down. He's one of the most experienced assistant referees we have in this country. He's excellent at what he does. Don't really know why he made that decision, because the preference would be to keep the flag down and then let VAR fix it if it was incorrect. However, that's not what happened. If it had happened that way, St. Louis would have had a goal because it would have been inconclusive. And in this case, same video, same exact angle everyone has seen. It's just not conclusive to be able to say he was not in an offside position from that video. So kind of is what it is. Wish I'd be there to be able to answer some more questions for you, but unavailable this evening when you're going to be live on the air. I will hopefully support you again next time, and hope everybody enjoys this show. Thanks.
Just quick shout out to George, Jake. Yeah. I mean, this guy, for anybody that hasn't seen every episodes with him prior to, this man's pedigree and just wealth of knowledge when it comes to refereeing is absolutely incredible. So it's a guy that we always have a go-to, and he's always just down to earth and respectful about it. So to this point, Jake, I think the one is, unfortunately, that it just seems like it's a little bit of a nuanced rule that I really wish that we would change in the MLS, and honestly kind of move into something like the NFL, as opposed to not being able to review it for conclusive evidence. I think it should be reviewed, and then the ref should go over. And then if it's not conclusive, then they say the call on the field stands, as opposed to saying the call on the field is confirmed. And I agree, it's a human error on the fact that the flag went up, maybe not an error, but they would usually appreciate just keeping it down and letting it play on. That's what we've been moving towards in the past couple of years with soccer and football all across the world. But this one kind of stinks.
Yeah, no, it does. I don't, nothing to add to what you said, Justin. I think George gave a great commentary as well. We'll have him on here soon to give a little more lay of the land. And I'm hoping we're not having him on because we're pissed about something, which seems to be usually when he is here. So we'll try to be a happy camper next time we have George on. But again, shout out to George Gansner. Thank you, George, for coming on the show and giving us a quick segment there, despite being busy down in Dallas. But final thing, Justin, before we kick into the preview here, is the subs. Only 4 subs in this match. One of them was done to us again, right? That's a theme I'm noticing too, is we can't really seem to get something going from a chemistry perspective because we're constantly having to deal with things very early on in the game. Like Nelson in Kansas City, and then Watts having to come in here for Yara, who took a absolute hammer to the face on a cross, collapsed. It looked pretty bad at the time. Obviously, he got up. They did their initial sort of assessment, and they cleared him. And he came back on, played for at least a couple more minutes from what I remember. Until then, we saw everything kind of stop, and he was removed from the pitch. We made a substitution. He looked confused. Olaf looked confused. Sounds like the club put out a statement even right before the post-game press conference and said that this is the situation. You know, they called down and said that, yeah, he needs to come out. Now they noticed something else. It doesn't look great, right, from a medical standpoint, because you really got to be doing everything you can to protect these players. They can't protect themselves, and I think a lot of them won't protect themselves because they want to be a part of these matches. They have that ultimate sort of competitor drive within them. So I feel for Josh in this, and I respect the hell out of that mindset, right, that nothing's going to hold me down. I'm going to do everything I can to help the team win. But, you do hope those situations get handled more effectively, right? Because there's so much attention on that now with concussions awareness and all the protocols in place. And to have one slip through the cracks like this, there really should be none.
Absolutely. I think this one, Jake, if you watch the replay, just the way that he went down and just was laying there with his arms out, I think that's one where it should have just been, let's take this extremely precautionary. And I think he should not have entered it back in. Obviously, he shouldn't have entered back in, but watching it live, it was a scary one. So wishing all the best for Josh, because that is not something you want to be messing with.
No. Betcher came on for Toy Shirt 30 minutes later in the 60. Ostrock came on for Hartel in the 87th and Joyner for Hebert. Betcher, I thought, had a pretty good impact, needs to score at least one of those chances, in my opinion. And we do see him do that, so I'm not going to harp too much on him. But he definitely had an impact. Ostrock, not as much from what I had gleaned. And Joyner, we already talked about. But Justin, let's get into the preview. We're going from number 1 in the East to number 1 in the West and number 1 overall right now in the Whitecaps. But before we do, let's talk about our friends at Hoffman Brothers, our presenting sponsor for 2025. They're responsible for helping bring this show to you all this season. And Justin, I don't know about you right now. I am pumping myself with every allergy medicine known to man right now. It's miserable. My eyes look like I don't even know how to describe them. They're just a different color than what they should be. I'm constantly having to apply like a nose spray, or like, it's just miserable, dude. The allergies are awful. They always hit like a peak right around now in April. And I didn't honestly even know this, but there are some great indoor air quality products that you can invest in and look at that can help clear up the ducts in your house and make sure that you have a better sort of experience and kind of combat those allergens within your own home. Hoffman Brothers does that. They do duct cleaning. They do air scrubbers. Great examples of things that you can be doing and looking at in your home to improve your air quality, especially during allergy season. So think about that. Noodle on that. If you're someone that deals with allergies, we all kind of have at least a little bit, I feel like. It could be you.
Yeah, so Jake, I actually don't have allergies, but the one thing that we do have is a little bit of trouble when the storms are coming. And that's one thing that you can reach out to Hoffman Brothers for as well, is doing a little generator maintenance, indoor installs to gear up for these big storms. Because, Jake, I don't know if you've seen it, but it seems like a consistent theme right now where we had a nice weekend this past weekend, but previously the weekdays during the week are so nice and the weekends go to crap. And this weekend, it's supposed to rain Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So do not wait. You should call Hoffman Brothers at 314-664-3011 or visit them at hoffmanbros.com.
On to Vancouver. This one's been a spicy fixture over our short existence as a club. It's featured goals, and goals galore at that. In 2023, we had a 3-1 W at home. That was our first ever match against them. They returned the favor with a 3-0 drubbing on the road for us. In 2024, we got smashed up at home 4-1, and then had a really tight affair away 3-4. So I see 2 3-goal instances and 2 4-goal instances, and they've been putting them away, man. So, and they're doing it again this season. We'll talk about that. But 19 total goals in the 4 fixtures played between us both. You know, this one probably will follow a similar pattern that we're kind of finding our stride again, and they're already on theirs. So it gives you a little bit of a spoiler where we're going. But Vancouver last season, you know, a pretty decent season when you think about it. 47 points. They got the 8 seed, which means they play in that play-in game, that wild card match, where they absolutely demolished Portland 5-0 to advance to round 1 against LAFC. And they gave LAFC a pretty good scare. LAFC won both home games, and they won their own home game in Vancouver. So they gave them a good ride, a good season. And then after all that, they fired their head coach, Vanni Sartini, who – that's that really flamboyant guy. We saw him on the sidelines. We definitely made fun of him as well. But they went aggressive. They went aggro, and they got rid of him. And I think it's really paying off for them so far in 25.
Yeah, and sorry, Jake, I had to go look at it again. So we've lost 3 of the 4 games against them with these goals. The one that we lost 3-4, we were winning 2-0.
Yeah.
And that one I just remembered stinging, so I had to go look that up. But yes, in 2025, they're the number 1 in the MLS with 19 points, with 6 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss. They have the most goals for at 17, and the tied for the lowest goals against is 6, which is the same amount that we have, which puts them as an MLS leading best on goal differential by 5 goals through a total of 8 games so far, which is absolutely insane. And Jake, the one thing that surprised me the most out of this is not only are they doing this, so they played 8 games in the regular season like we have so far, they've played 6 more games than us, because guess what? I completely forgot about this thing called the Champions Cup. So Vancouver had the best start in the MLS season while also playing an additional 6 games with there. So in their first round, they beat Saprissa 3-2 in aggregate. And then the round of 16 and the quarterfinals, they tied Monterrey 3-3, but moved on in aggregate for away goals in the round of 16. Quarterfinals tied Puma 3-3 in aggregate, but moved on their away goals. And it's kind of funny, Jake. So in their last 4 games of the Champions Cup, they've tied all of them. They tied at home 1-1, and then on the road 2-2. So pushing them through because they are going away on away goals. And so now with their upcoming game, Jake, they'll be taking on Inter Miami. And it's going to be a kind of spicy one for them because this is a team that is scoring a lot of goals. And you know that Messi and Suarez and boys are putting goals away as well. So sharing my screen real quick. Here's the full layout of the Champions Cup playoffs. So this is now into the semifinals. They have the date wrong on here for Miami versus Vancouver. That's actually going to be April 24th, I believe, or 22nd. So it's going to be the Thursday after our game with them this weekend. And then they'll have to play Miami again the Wednesday after that. And on the other side are Tigres, and I don't forget who the other one is, but it's going to be 2 teams from Liga MX.
Cruz Azul, I think, is that,
you're right.
that team. Yeah. No, and I like that you brought this up, Dustin. We haven't obviously talked about it. Remember our short berth in this last year, very, very short, being knocked out in Houston. But this is obviously a really cool competition, features some of the best teams in North America. And for them to be in the semis against Miami, I mean, again, you're 2 of the best teams in the league doing it on the biggest stage in a very big, continental competition. I'm probably going to watch that game. Like, if you want to believe in the product, you watch that kind of stuff. I mean, what better way under the lights, Miami, Vancouver? Honestly, I'll probably be pulling for Vancouver and see what they can do and squeak by. But no, great shout out to bring that into it. Yeah, they've played 14 games already this season, and they're flying. Biggest results that we can call out, Justin, their only loss was 3-1 against Chicago. And there's a little bit of an asterisk on that one anyway, because they couldn't play 5 of their top 7 guys in minutes due to some injuries, also international duty. Some of the easier matches, though, that we've kind of called out is they haven't had the toughest run of schedule. The CONCACAF Champions Cup's been one thing. MLS has been a little bit more of a cakewalk for them, where they've played Montreal, got the dub there, played the Galaxy, who are wiltering in last right now in the West, and they got a draw at Toronto. So some of these teams that kind of make up the bottom tiers of the respective East and West conferences, but recently they sent Austin on a ride this last weekend. Brian White had 4 goals on Saturday. Unbelievable. What's the stat you always talk about, just from last year? Like, not one of our players had more than 5 goals. Yeah. Brian White had 4 on Saturday.
Last year, I think we had 4 dudes with 5 goals last year. So we didn't have a single dude. We were the only team in the MLS not to have a team with 6. And there's only one other team that had at least a guy with 6. And so the rest of the MLS had 7 or more. So he had 4. Dude, I looked this game up. It wasn't like it was like stoppage time crap. Like, they destroyed Austin with Brad Suver in goal, which is just a tough guy to get goals past. But they had an XG of 4.76. They had 27 shots. 22 of them were in the box. So this team wasn't just ripping shots from long range. And 11 shots on target and 8 total big chances, putting away 5 of those. And actually, Austin's goal was in stoppage time in like the 90th plus force. Like, this should have been a 5-0 dub. This team is hot right now.
I'm hoping they got that out of their system, because can you imagine receiving that walloping? I think we'd have fans permanently walk away, legitimately, if that happened to us. It's not going to happen, guys. It's not going to happen. But what to look for with Vancouver? This is usually a team that deploys a little 4-3-3 formation. They're going to be a high possession type team. They're going to be very structured in their buildup, and they'll kind of shift into a 3-2-5 shape during the attacking phase of the game. They'll use the width. They'll definitely grab some chalk on their boots, and they are very good on the ball. Quick movement, very incisive, short, quick passes. They can also flex into the medium and long play. Switches, big element of their game as well. They lead the league, they have the 4th most in the league switches. So just times taking the ball from the right to the left in a big swing, same thing left to right. They also are a team that are very dangerous in set pieces. They get a lot of them because they're so good at attacking. They have the most corner kicks in the league. So you got to keep an eye out for that. And defensively, they're really disciplined. We haven't mentioned anything defensive about them, obviously, but you mentioned up top, Justin, they're tied with us on goals conceded at 6. And we're, I think there's another team in the mix there where all of us have, the tied for the least amount of goals conceded. So they have that going for them as well. So this is a well-oiled, well-rounded, uber-balanced team. And honestly, Justin, kind of gives me vibes of a Columbus, where like there's no huge big name star. Brian White obviously is the goal scorer for them, but they just look well drilled. And I think their coach, Sorensen, who took over for Santini, is really doing a good job of getting these guys gelled, playing within themselves, and making the whole a lot better, and making sure that they're a cohesive, good sum of the parts versus relying on a guy like a Cucho or a Chicho Arango.
So the one thing I will say, Jake, because I feel like we're just hyping up this team like it's almost a podcast for the Whitecaps. I'm going to take a step back on the three teams that you mentioned earlier. Montreal, Los Angeles Galaxy, and Toronto have a combined 9 points between all three of them. So those are three easy games that they played, and they took away 7 points from there. So let's just, yes, but the thing is that they're doing that we're not doing is winning the games they should. But as we get into this, when we look at some of the departures, there's just two guys. With Stuart Armstrong ended up he was a DP. Now he's back in England in the championship. And then Fafa Picault had a great year for them in 2014 with just 14 goal contributions, just 1,700 minutes. However, now he's down in Miami. Yeah. He's only played 149 minutes this season. So a guy that just immediately saw the bench down there, which makes sense with how deep they are, but kind of a sad fall off for him because he's 34 years old. And so maybe he's just going down there like, hey, I'm going to go win a ring. Like, what are you Udonis Haslam? Just bopping around teams trying to pick up rings without getting any minutes?
No, I'm with you. They've had some big incoming. So obviously we mentioned the manager, Jesper Sorensen, who was hired to replace Vanni Sartini, and he arrived in Vancouver. He's only 51. He was coaching before in his native Denmark with Brøndby, I believe, who is in the Danish top flight. Pretty well-known team, usually on in the skirts of the Champions League, sometimes Europa League as well. In terms of big European competitions, he was in charge of Denmark U21s at the international level. So got some good experience. Obviously, he's making a lot with Vancouver, and they've got some good talent around him. Jaden Nelson, who we will not see due to a hamstring injury that he suffered on April 4th, is a great winger, central midfielder for them. 1 goal, 4 assists so far this season in just 274 minutes played. That's a goal contribution every 55 minutes. We are thanking the Lord. We're not going to see this man on the pitch for us. But Emmanuel Sabi, they're going to keep an eye out for another good shifty winger. 6 years in Denmark, 18 months as a rotation option in that league. And one of the poor teams in France that he ended up on. He finally came back to North America. He's 27-year-old. Actually has made a U.S. men's national team cap, which is interesting. And he's producing for Vancouver. He is quick off the ball. I feel like a great winger. He also contributes defensively as well. He's got 2 goals, 1 assist in just 191 minutes. Again, goal contributions coming from this guy as well. But for me, Justin, the money's on the returners. And Brian White, you love to see, right? He's an American. Didn't really ever get like a full shake, a full go in the national team. He's gotten a couple caps recently, but he's producing at a top level.
Yeah, I mean, in 2024, he had 15 goals and 2 assists. So he led the team in goals, but only 2 assists, starting 28 of his 30 games. This year already, as we mentioned, 6 goals, 4 of them being in the previous game, which is tied for the lead in the MLS right now. 0 assists. So you know this guy, just once he gets it on his foot, you got to get bodies in front of him because he's not looking to dish it out very often. And then also so as of right now, he's also had 4 goals in his games in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. I'm struggling right now, but I'm just like he scored a goal per 90 minutes in there as well. But luckily, Jake, they are missing Ryan Gauld. He's a market value of $7 million out of Scotland. He suffered a knee injury back on March 7th. He's expected to return later this month per FOTMob. He was out again last game. So knock on wood, he's going to be out again this week. Obviously, we don't have the injury reports yet, but he had 10 goals and 15 assists last season. So that's a goal contribution every 99 minutes last year. So once they get him back, this is going to be even more of a high-powered offense.
Dude, I remember that 4-3 game last year. He took a butcher's knife to our midfield and defense. I mean, I think on a couple of occasions, he oozes quality. I'm so glad we won't see him either. When you think about it, the timing's right. You want to get an upset win over a top team in the league, you're going up against them hamstrung. That shouldn't be the mentality, but you definitely know that you need to make this one count because you probably won't be as fortunate on the back end of that. Pedro Vite, another guy in the midfield for them, number 45, 23-year-old lefty, young Ecuadorian, really good midfielder in his 4th season with the Whitecaps. He's a smaller guy in stature, but he carries a big stick. 1 goal, 3 assists on the season. He will probably look to control and parole a lot of the midfield, especially in Ryan Gauld's absence. But Justin, it's a lot of time talking about Vancouver. We are not a Whitecaps podcast. We are for St. Louis City SC, and we're going to roll into our Hoffman brothers starting 11.
I told you I was going to click it.
Oh, I didn't even see you say that. I like the quick premature go and then the roll in. I think that we should make that our new one.
Yeah. And hopefully it's not making your ears bleed. Please comment if it did. I brought the volume down a little bit, but I didn't want to make it so quiet. So let us know in the comments. But Jake, starting 11. I think it's going to be pretty similar to what we had in the last game. So let me know your thoughts on this. Loon to net. Just not going to assume Berkey's back yet. I would love to see him there, but just we got to keep going with what we know for right now until we know more on the injury aspect. But like we said, we did see a little video of him picking up his girlfriend top of Art Hill. So maybe his hands are good to go. And then back left from left to right on the back three, I'm going to go with Baumgartel, Kessler, and Hebert. Now knowing that Yarrow is obviously or more than likely out, I'd be very surprised and somewhat upset if they even try to give him a go in this game.
Yeah, I mean, the center backs almost, I think, kind of pencil themselves in right now just out of pure necessity. I think the only center back we'll have, or center backs we could have on the bench would be Winsel and JGR, if you think of him as more of a center back. So, I mean, otherwise, you're missing Horn, you're missing Nilsson, and you're missing Yarrow, I would assume. They haven't come out and confirmed that yet, but I imagine that will be the case as he clears concussion protocol. Otherwise, you got to go back to what works. And I think, to me, you're doing it, but you're doing it a little bit differently, again, given some personnel differences. I would go back to Wallum on the left, personally. I know that's where he went, but he didn't start there. He started on the right. I think you go back to Hartel and Morales holding up the central midfield. And then what we saw on, obviously, Sunday was Wallum started right way back. And then we saw Watts go there. I don't want to see Watts there anymore. Like I just don't. Nothing there impresses me. And again, I'm not saying you write him off as a player. I don't rate him as a right wing back. I just don't think he brings nearly enough offensively. No progressive passes, no progressive carries, and defensively, I think he's a little bit suspect at times as well. So don't want to see Watts there personally. I want to see us go for it. Like whether that's bringing Joyner along and giving him another call up and giving him a full run out. Show me something different. Also, you signed Joey Zielinski on the draft. Do you just want to play every single person ahead of him while he just sits on the bench, even though you signed him to a first team spot? That doesn't really make sense to me. Like maybe give this guy a go at some point. So the right wing back is the one that I'm the most open on. I just don't want it to be Watts, and it can't be Hebert because Hebert needs to play in the center back line.
Yeah, so Jake, I will say if anybody disagrees with us on this, just let's talk about what we just did or what we did earlier. And shout out to Mike again, where the ball goes to die is if you put Watts at right wing back and then Hebert at right center back. That connection right there is like if you play FIFA, that's an absolute just red line. Like that's no bueno. So if anything, if you are going to start Watts, it can't be on the same side as Hebert because then other teams know to one, attack that defensively, and then two, also we cannot move the ball up down the right side. So that's why I really do appreciate Zielinski. However, if they're going to start Watts, put him at left back and put Wallum on the right back.
Yeah, honestly, I love that idea, Justin, because I'm looking at this. The sumptuousness of this left line for us. Baumgartel, Hartel, Wallum, Cilio. There is so much danger in that left side of the pitch. If you are going to bring Watts into it, I agree. Throw him on the left. They can deal with that. They have enough quality still on that side of the pitch. You got to put Wallum where he needs to go, and obviously he can go both places. So I'd be down for that if that needed to be the case. We already said Cilio. I think Cilio, Teuscher, again, start right underneath Klaus. Teuscher kind of almost as like a floating 10. Cilio getting some really, really good chalk on the boots, giving us width, giving us verticality. The only guy that can beat guys one-on-one on the team, and then the big man, Klaus, up top. I think, again, it's a little bit of continuity. Get guys a little more chemistry. Obviously, got to make some changes that are just done to you. But I think this we've seen work against a good team. Can you replicate that success?
Yeah, the one thing I will say, Jake, looking back up at the comments, JT had a good comment here. Betcher came from Vancouver. So when you said, what was that one stat earlier, and you went with the 4 goals, that's the stat that came to my mind. Betcher is the fastest to his first 4 goals in MLS history at 88 minutes, and he did that for Vancouver. So obviously I would say that this is not a game where you're going to just do that because he could have done that against Schulte and played him last game, slew versus slew. So I really do think that it's going to be Klaus up top with Cilio and Teuscher below him, and I'm excited to see what we can do.
Goals and prediction for the game, Justin, as we bring the show to a close here. My goal is, I think, a fair bit not quantifiable. I guess in the end it is quantifiable, but for me, knowing who they have available and knowing who will have available, I think it'll be a big matchup between Kessler and Brian White. He'll lead the line. He'll play centrally. He will ruffle feathers. He will be physical. He will get his couple of chances. But Kessler and the back three, plus even like a Alfredo Morales as well, if he gets to start in central defensive midfield, got to shut him down. If you can siphon off Brian White from the game or frustrate him, get him some discipline concerns, whatever way I'm down with. If you can nullify Brian White, I think you have a pretty good chance at keeping him off the board and giving your team the best chance to win. So that's my goal, at least from a defensive standpoint.
Jake, my goal for the game is to score at least 2 goals. We have done that once so far this season, and that was in the LA Galaxy game, which feels like last season at this point. And we've been shut out 5 times, and I think in our last 3 games, we have now scored 1 goal, or 4 games in our last, because we were shut out 3 before the last game. So long story short, when we're at home, score 2 goals. And that's actually going to be my prediction. I'm going to go with a 2-1 dub on the team, Jake, because I really do think. Hey, I know. I'm not overly optimistic. I went for a tie last game, but I really do think that this is a team. Yeah, Brian White scored 4 goals last game. He's got 6 total. They're missing a couple of guys, and I do think that Mr. Kessler can lock him up. And I think just getting back to City Park, maybe we were a little thrown off because we had a day game and then a Sunday night game. Saturday night at City Park, we're going to score 2 goals and we're going to win this game 2-1. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I love that. I hope that happens. And I do also think at some point, these are tough matchups, but again, we've given away a lot at home so far in terms of points, and you can't keep doing that. You got to amass the points at home at Energizer Park, got to make it a fortress. When's that tide going to turn? Hopefully it's Saturday. My mind goes to a 2-2 draw on this one, and I do not think that would be the worst result in the world. We have to get something out of this match, in my opinion. And I think we've seen enough to know that we can deal with some teams that have some really good quality, and we can bring some quality ourselves. And I think I'd walk away from a 2-2 draw. If it's anything remotely like the fashion we played Columbus in, I think that'd be a very warranted and justified result if we got it. And I think it'd be something we can build from. So again, I'm looking for building pieces. It doesn't need to be a 5-0 demolition of Vancouver, and it shouldn't be the inverse either. It needs to be something where we can walk away from that game. We had fun. We liked what we watched, and we say, okay, I can't wait till next week to see what they can do in train this week and build on top of from game to game. And I think 2 goals, Justin, I love that. That's 1 more than last week. Can we add to that and get another one? I think 2 goals puts you in a great pole position to get points in this game.
It just cracks me up because I was just thinking like, oh yeah, when I'm on the golf course and I have like a triple bogey and then I get a double bogey, you're like just one less than last week. So yeah, we're working our way down. But Jake, in this game, we're hosting the best team in the MLS. However, we're not the underdog here. And speaking of underdog, we're absolutely going to be having one of the picks in our entry be that their goalie is going to give up over 1.5 goals. Because I think both of us, the higher on 1.5 goals allowed, because we both predicted a 2-goal scoring game for City. Then we'll kind of tinker around with it. I would love to see probably a higher than a half a shot on target from Mr. Klaus as well. Like you said, this is probably like the Steph Curry. He just saw the ball go through the net, and I would love to see the floodgates open.
I wonder if Underdog pads that projection a little bit more now that Klaus had so many shots in that last match. Could see 1.5 shots on target for that projection, in which case I might be tempted to go for a goal or assist. I would definitely hit higher on that. So we'll build the entry. We'll put it out there and see what you all think here. But again, these player props across all sports is in the Blues right now. It's on NBA. I know the play-in tournament starts tonight as well. I don't know anyone in NBA, but I know that's happening. It's fun stuff. If you think you know sports at all and you know players, you know performance, you know what's needed to get results, like we feel like we do, Underdog's the place to play. Go look at your players. Go look up any team. I'm saying like any sport. They have esports. They might even have darts on there. Who even knows? But they have so much on Underdog, and there's so much fun to be had out there. So if you want to sign up, type in code BALLWATCHING when you go to do that. And if you're in Missouri, it is operating legally here in Missouri right now. You can go play it on your phone. You don't need to go over the border or anything. It's right here from your couch. Have some action on the game. Get that heart pumping a little bit more. I think the results are going to flow our way, and I'm hoping the money does too.
And honestly, Jake, you don't even have to just keep it to City. You got the Cardinals on there. You got the Blues as well. So this is a time that is perfect for us, as the Blues are going to be hitting into the playoffs. I think we're still up 4-1, I believe. Yep. 4-1 and into the third. And then also as City is starting to take off here after we finally scored a goal, I'm starting to feel it. The weather's getting a little better. Even the birds are chirping a little bit now. You saw their wins this weekend over the Phillies, and then again over the Astros. So this is a time period where I really do think that this is the perfect time to hop on Underdog. So use code BALLWATCHING. You get up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you sign up.
Amen, man. Amen. Well, look out for that entry. We'll be putting that out live for you all to follow, tail, maybe get some action on Underdog this weekend. In the meantime, all eyes on the Blues, all eyes on City. St. Louis sports are peaking right now with the Cardinals in flight. Obviously, Cardinals in flight. The Blues, here qualifying now for the playoffs. Postseason hockey's back in St. Louis. City, I think maybe about to kick off a little win streak here. Who knows? But the vibes are high. Good time to be in St. Louis. Weather's turning. We love it.
And Jake, guess what? We're at home again, so we're going to do another giveaway at the pitch. If you haven't been down there already, or if you're going to be, it seems like we might have a little bit of rain. So this is a perfect place to get inside caddy corner to the stadium. Was talking to Ali again. We'd love to do the bucket giveaway. So anybody that comes in, if you come up and say, I love the pitch, we will give you a free beer. So find us in the front left at the pitch on Saturday night.
I love it. And if you love us, obviously come say hi, grab a beer, grab a cold one, a cold frosty. But also if you love us and you're not going to the pitch, show us some love on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you are. Like the show, subscribe to the show, toggle those notifications on. Show us that you care. We do this for you all and want to make sure that you all walk away from the show having learned something, or at least a little more excited about the match coming up. And you can talk a little more dangerously at the dinner table with mom, dad, your cousin, your aunts, your uncles about what City's up to. And you can do that here. So make sure you show us some love if you're liking what you're hearing. We appreciate you all. We'll be back, obviously, after the match for a recap and for a preview of the next one. But until then, all for City.
All for City.